All right, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight's Housing Benefits Overview webinar, where we're going to be navigating public benefits. It is an overview of New York City public benefits, including common housing benefits like City FEPS, Section 8. And we will discuss benefit eligibility and the application processes and how to maintain your benefits. My name is Kendra Dunstan, and I am the Development and External Affairs Coordinator here at Brooklyn A, and I'll be your MC tonight. So a little bit about Brooklyn A. Brooklyn Legal Services Corporation A, or Brooklyn A, believes that all New Yorkers should have equal access to legal services and to seek justice, make their voices heard, and overcome systemic racism and oppression. We were established in 1968 as part of the War on Poverty, and Brooklyn A believes attorneys have a critical role to play in combating poverty, inequity, and racism. Our civil legal services, organizing efforts, and educational resources assist our clients and their communities in defending and mobilizing against harassment, displacement, and gentrification and asserting their rights. This event tonight comes from Brooklyn A's Preserving Affordable Housing Queens program. We are in our first year of having the Queens Housing Practice, and there we use legal and advocacy strategy to preserve and protect affordable housing, prevent evictions, combat tenant harassment and discrimination, and ensure that working families, individuals, older adults, and others live in stable environments and within their financial means, seeking to curb the loss of affordable housing in Queens. As you see on the screen, we have two other practice areas, including our Consumer Economic Advocacy Program. That's where we help individuals with tax-related issues, deed theft. We help prevent foreclosures. And then additionally, under the CEA program, we have a domestic violence unit that offers assistance with orders of protection, child custody, and support, and more. And we also have the Consumer Economic Advocacy Program. This is where we help small business owners with new and existing leases. We provide advice on laws and options. We can help negotiate rent and arrears for commercial spaces. And we combat commercial tenant harassment. And we also assist nonprofit and corporation and provide startup services. Okay. And so before we continue, I just want to let you know that we will have a Q&A at the end of the event. And that is where you will have the options to ask any questions you may have by typing them into the chat box. Or you can raise your hand, use the little hand raise feature on your Zoom screen, and you'll be able to ask your question directly. And so with that, I would like to introduce and thank our sponsor this evening. I would like to thank our sponsor, Senator Leroy Comrie. I'm sure most of you will share in the sentiment that the senator is one of the most dedicated elected officials. Although I don't live in his district, his work is felt throughout the entire city. He advocates for the rights of all New Yorkers, with District 14 being very special to him. Senator Comrie believes that government must be responsive to the needs of all people. His office is the conduit through which access to quality education, healthcare, and services for seniors, programs and resources for youth, avenues to enhance small business growth, increase public safety measures, and smart, sustainable economic development that provides living wage jobs in the community are provided. I would like to thank the senator tonight, and it's always amazing to have him as a partner with us and just truly being dedicated to the work. So I want to thank you all again, and I would like to introduce our presenters. So we have Hiram Vidal, Esquire, who is our staff attorney, and he is barred in the state of New York since 2017. Hiram began working with the Preserving Affordable Housing Unit of Brooklyn. And so he's been here for a while. And then once Queens opened, he was able to move over to Queens and take that experience there. And Hiram is no stranger to Queens. He holds a JD from St. John's University School of Law and a BS in History and Urban Studies from CUNY Queens College. Tiffany Fimiano is the Preserving Affordable Housing Queens Program Director. She's an experienced litigator who has represented hundreds of tenants across 4 boroughs. Tiffany has engaged in affirmative litigation and eviction defense on behalf of tenants at administrative agencies, as well as in civil, housing, and Supreme Courts, and has extensive experience advocating for the rights of all. Tiffany graduated from the State University of New York at Buffalo and Touro College, Jacob D. Fushberg Law Center. I want to say thank you to both of our presenters for being here this evening and providing you with all of your expertise this evening. So I would like to go over our agenda. We will be covering what housing and financial assistance is available to you, what are some of the long-term housing support options, and then some resources so that you can proceed with next steps and feel empowered on your own. So again, with that, we are just about to get ready. And Tiffany, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar tonight. Like Kendra said, this is meant to be an overview of many of the benefits that are available to folks. And so we'll start by talking about one of the most essential benefits, which is cash assistance. So cash assistance is available to people for a limited period of time. And truly, it's not as much money as it should be, but it's a little something if you're experiencing extreme hardship. And so if you have experienced a loss of income and you're really struggling, this is a benefit that's available to you, meant to supplement, your household income and provide you with some means to, afford your daily life. Like I said, it's not as much as it should be, but it's at least something to give you a little bit of funds in your pocket for the day to day.
I would say cash assistance is very important. You open the door with cash assistance to receiving other benefits like FEPS we'll talk about, and also shelter allowance. Those are two things that help pay for rent. So cash assistance really is that first level. Like once you get that, you'll be able to proceed to other benefits that HRA offers.
That's right. Another common benefit is SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, often referred to as food stamps. And SNAP couples well with cash assistance if you're experiencing financial hardship. This is a resource for you to be able to provide food for your family and for yourself. And again, it's not nearly as much as it should be or could be, but it's at least a little something to enable you to put food on the table. And there are ways to make SNAP benefits go a little further. One of those ways is through using the New York City green markets. Not many folks know, but if you're receiving SNAP benefits and you like to shop at the green markets for fresh fruits and vegetables, and they also have meats and seafoods and really anything that you can think of. Some markets like the Union Square Market, for example, which is far from Queens, but even like the Forest Hills Green Market and there are so many markets all over the place. If you use your SNAP benefits at the green markets, not only is it going farther because those foods just generally cost a little less than if you were to buy them at the supermarket, but the green markets will give you money back that you can use at the green markets. So if you're a SNAP recipient already, or you qualify for SNAP, you're thinking about SNAP benefits, please know that you can use SNAP benefits at the green markets to get a little more out of your benefit. And I see that the senator has joined, and Kendra,
Yes.
would you like to break for a moment?
Yes, absolutely. Senator Conroy, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are so appreciative and thank you for for joining us. And this is also a very special webinar. This is in our first year of being in Queens, having a Queens presence in the tenant practice. This is our first webinar that we're hosting. So thank you for being a part of this. And, we gave a brief introduction to you and your work, but that's never enough on all that you do. But I would love to be able to turn it over to you if you'd like to take a few moments.
Sure, Kirsten. I appreciate everything that Brooklyn A is doing, and having this housing seminar is just another opportunity to show the versatility of services and the desire for Brooklyn A to provide information, resources, and help to our constituents all around the city. I've been proud to work with all of the nonprofit legal groups in the city and throughout the state to try to provide help and opportunities for our people. And as we move into even more perilous times, it's important that we share information as widely as possible. Therefore, we're doing this webinar with you, and hopefully we can do a lot more to inform our constituents and New Yorkers from all areas about the opportunities that they have. And this housing workshop, especially now, is important to share with our fellow New Yorkers. So I just want to thank Brooklyn A and encourage everyone that's on the seminar and watching this webinar to go out and seek more information from free sources. You don't have to pay for this information. This information is given out in many places free. You can go on Brooklyn A's website. You can come on my website. We send out a weekly email blast to people about things, events, and activities that are happening in the community. I want to thank my staff for helping Brooklyn A with organizing this and other events that we're doing throughout the community to pass information along. And I look forward to, even as things get stranger on a national level, being more combined and communicative and sharing good things on a direct level. Because if we can pass information along to each other, give people resources and ideas that they need, the better it will be to withstand any national storms, I'll call them, just to be polite. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Comrie. Thank you so very much for partnering with us and always advocating for this type of information and empowering all, not just your constituents, but every single member of New York City. I also want to thank your entire team for always advocating for your constituents and truly being dedicated to the work. It's always a pleasure working with you. I'm glad you got to meet Tiffany, who is the program director of Queens, and Hiram, who's the staff attorney there. I'm sure we're going to have many opportunities to work together in the future.
Definitely. Well, I'm going to jump off only because I promised to do a couple of other things this evening, and I know that this is for anyone that's watching. But please reach out to Brooklyn A if you have questions, or my office, and we will try to direct you to someone that can help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Senator.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Yeah.
And Tiffany, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks so much. So I was just wrapping up SNAP. Hiram, anything to add about SNAP benefits?
Yeah, I think two important details that I don't know if people know. Even if you receive Social Security benefits like security income or disability benefits, you can get SNAP on top of that, and it won't reduce your monthly benefits from Social Security. So that's a little important addition that you can add to like your monthly income. As well, if you are financially responsible for a child, like a primary caregiver, you don't necessarily have to be like the legal parent or a foster parent, but a caregiver financially responsible for a child or children may qualify for SNAP as well. So I think that is very valuable for people to know.
Absolutely. Another important benefit is shelter allowance. And so if you're qualifying for cash assistance and SNAP benefits, you likely also qualify for something called shelter allowance. And shelter allowance is a small amount of money that's sent to your landlord monthly. It kind of staves off falling into total rental arrears and may give you the ability to get some funds together to reduce the amount of arrears that you're falling in if you're experiencing extreme financial hardship. But this is not necessarily a benefit that's going to pay your entire monthly rent. It's just something that's going to contribute and prevent the arrears from becoming larger and larger and larger every month that you aren't able to pay your full rent.
I would say if the benefit is out there, take advantage of it, please, because anything that you can get should be welcome to you.
Yeah, and that's really the whole reason that we're doing this training and this Know Your Rights webinar right now, because we've noticed, especially like over the years, that folks just really don't know about these resources until they're in an extreme emergency situation. And so our biggest hope is that your takeaway from this is that you now know about these benefits. Even if you don't necessarily know every single thing about them, you know that they're out there, you know that you may qualify for them, and it's worth looking into if you're experiencing any degree of financial hardship. We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk more substantively about some of the more common housing benefits that we assist clients in obtaining, and that really do supplement your monthly rental expenses and can pay a large amount of your ongoing monthly rent, in addition to rental arrears if you have fallen behind in rent. So the first one is CityFEPS. CityFEPS is City Fighting Homelessness and Eviction Program Supplement. And this is a program for folks who have been around for a while. You know, it's been called many different names, Work Advantage Link, all different kinds of things. But really, what it is a monthly rental subsidy that the city pays directly to your landlord, and it pays a certain amount depending on your income, your family size, and your apartment size. And so for CityFEPS, the qualifications are a little more difficult. CityFEPS is more specifically meant to help people who are either already in the shelter system or who are at risk of entering the shelter system. So if you are living in the shelter system, or you have nowhere else to go and you're about to enter the shelter system, CityFEPS is the subsidy that you should be looking into. Hiram, anything to add on CityFEPS?
Yeah, so if you're in the shelter for at least 90 days, this CityFEPS kind of becomes available to you. You should speak with your case manager in the shelter you're in, because that would be the person that would help you in filing these forms. And that's the most important thing you can do. 90 days, go to your case manager in the shelter, let that person know, hey, I've been here for 90 days. Can you help me?
Yeah. The next benefit, like CityFEPS, but a little bit different, is FEPS. FEPS is meant to assist families. The FEPS is meant to prevent families from entering the shelter system or experiencing homelessness. So if you have an active cash assistance case and you have a child in the home, you may qualify for FEPS, and FEPS will pay, just like CityFEPS, FEPS will pay your rent ongoing directly to your landlord, depending on your apartment size, your family size, and your income. Although if you have cash assistance, you probably don't have an income. And the thing about FEPS is that it can be difficult to apply for FEPS, because you can only apply by going to home-based or Catholic charities, and the process is lengthy. So if you're starting to fall behind and you know that you qualify or already have cash assistance and there's a child in your home, you want to get that process started immediately so that you are at least somewhere along the way by the time you either have a housing court case or even after your housing court case has started.
I think it's important to mention as well, like I said before about cash assistance being that little stepping stone to getting FEPS. A social security number is required for this. So, you know, not everybody in New York City has a social security number. But for adults who have children who were born in the United States who do have a social security number, the application for cash assistance can be done through that child. So as the adult caregiver, you can apply through your child for cash assistance and then down the road for FEPS. There's two types of, well, there's FEPS to stay and FEPS to go, let's say. FEBS to stay will help you pay your rent in the current apartment that you are in, which is helpful if you want to stay. They'll pay up to like $19,000 in back rent with the right type of advocacy to HRA. FEBS to move, which I've helped quite a few of our clients get, when they're in apartments where, like, we have clients that their children are allergic to mice, to roaches, to mold. FEBS to move is maybe a better option, right? Instead of staying in the apartment, letting your child be exposed to those type of allergens. FEBS to move, if you qualify, they'll pay your security deposit into another apartment and rent to move. You could even get expenses to move. So those are two types of FEBS: stay and FEBS to go, FEBS to move. But you, like I said, apply for security, can use your child's social security. Head of household is the parent, but the child is what will get you in if you do not, as the primary caregiver, have that social security number.
Just a couple of follow-up thoughts on that. So just know that your household size will be reduced by anyone who doesn't have a social security number. So take that into account. And very important to be mindful of, once your children turn 18, that may affect the amount of the benefit that you receive. So just know that there are other factors at play. If you qualify for FEBS, you want to always be mindful of all the different requirements. Another common benefit that you may have already heard about is the one-shot deal. The one-shot deal is great for folks who fell behind in the rent for whatever the reason, really, truly. You know, it's common that people fall behind in the rent due to a loss of employment or a medical emergency or any other emergency expense, but have the ability to pay the rent going forward. And so if you can demonstrate the reason why you fell behind in the rent and that you're now able to pay the rent going forward, the city will pay your rental arrears up to a certain point. And, you know, this process also can be quite lengthy and does require some advocacy. So you want to get that process started, but just know that typically we're noticing that HRA generally prioritizes people who are at imminent risk of eviction. So if you're not yet sued in housing court, you can apply for a one-shot deal, but it might not be prioritized necessarily. And there are a number of documents that you'll need to obtain in order to successfully submit your one-shot deal application.
This resource is one that does not require an active cash assistance benefit. So with FEBS, you need the cash assistance. Here, this is like a loan you're taking out with the city. You do it through the same HRA Access HRA website or app on the phone, but it does not require you to be a recipient of city benefits. It's a loan essentially that you're taking out with the city, but it's not a loan in the conventional sense where you sign a promissory note and you're making monthly payments, and upon default, the entire outstanding balance becomes due. I find that although they make my clients sign what seems like a promissory note, like a promise to pay, that'll say, you know, I'll pay 1,000 and change a month. Realistically speaking, my clients are getting one-shot deals because they could not afford the rent. So, you know, I advise my clients pay something monthly so that the city sees you're trying. And for what it's worth, it works out. You won't find anywhere on any of these websites that the city will take a minimal payment, but essentially that's how it plays out. And I would say if you do get a one-shot deal, please pick the checks up yourself. Don't have them mailed directly to the landlord. Just avoids a lot of issues, you know, the checks being lost in the mail, landlord claiming they didn't get the check. And also it's a good little bargaining chip if there's some repairs that need to be made. You say, look, I have the checks. Can you come fix the windows finally, please? So the little tidbits that you can think about if one shot deal is something that you're pursuing.
In addition to the benefits that we have already described to you, there are some kinds of housing that essentially functions like a benefit. One is Section 8, right? So there's a lot of different kinds of Section 8. We're not going to talk about every single one, but just know really I think of it in terms of like two different kinds. One is project-based Section 8. Project-based Section 8 is Section 8 subsidy that's attached specifically to the housing. So no matter who moves into an apartment, that apartment's going to be subject to Section 8. And what that means is that that person's rent is going to be limited to 30% of their income. There are lots of, obligations on the tenant in order to ensure that their monthly rent is limited truly to 30% of their income, like annually recertifying your household composition and your household income. But project-based Section 8 is connected to the apartment for whomever lives in the apartment, and sometimes there may be like eligibility requirements attached to that. The other kind of Section 8 is voucher-based Section 8. So this has nothing to do with the individual apartment. It has to do with the individual person. You may have voucher-based Section 8 that's administered by NYCHA or HPD or even DHCR, though that's sort of uncommon. And if you are receiving voucher-based Section 8 or you are interested in voucher-based Section 8, that allows you to rent any apartment that will accept the voucher. By the way, nobody should discriminate against you based on your source of income. So theoretically, any apartment that is within the rental guidelines should accept your voucher. But know that for vouchers, there are some pretty rigorous inspection requirements. And so Section 8 is going to want to make sure that if they're paying for someone to live in an apartment, the apartment is in habitable condition. So people will inspect the apartment, make sure there's no conditions. And sometimes if there are conditions, they'll give the landlord a list of things that they have to do in order to have the contract approved. Another common form of housing that functions like a benefit is the New York City Housing Authority, NYCHA housing. These developments are located all around New York City and all around Queens. Difficult to get into, really like years long waiting lists sometimes. But like Section 8, the monthly rent will be limited to the household's income, 30% of the household's income, and it will require NYCHA residents to recertify every year and include all of the people who are living in the home and all of their income. This applies if you're receiving Social Security or disability or any benefit that's going to need to be reported. And I know Hiram has some information that he wants to share about NYCHA and recertifications.
Yeah, so it's important to know that NYCHA will run your social security number and that of the other occupants in your apartment, or the residents. So I've had the case where a nice old lady had no idea that her grandson, who lived with her for years, was receiving unemployment benefits, and NYCHA knew about it, even though they did not come forth with it, and the rent was raised. My client had no idea why the rent was raised, but at the end of the day, they had to make the payment because NYCHA saw the income went up. So 30% of that income was the rent. And unfortunately, that's how it goes. So if you are in a NYCHA, understand that all income counts. Please become forthwith with all that information, because the only person essentially you could be hurting is yourself.
Another form of housing benefit is specifically senior building public housing. So if you're a senior and you believe you qualify for New York City public housing, you want to look into specifically into senior housing. And there's also senior housing under Section 8. This is called Program 202 housing specifically for seniors. Also specifically for seniors, if you live in a rent stabilized apartment, is something called the Senior Citizens Rent Increase Exemption, otherwise known as SCREE. And it's also available for people with disabilities, and that's the Disability Rent Increase Exemption, or DREE. So for SCREE and DREE, if you meet the qualifications, you're a senior or you're a person with disability, and you live in a rent-regulated apartment. This can be a rent-stabilized apartment or a rent-controlled apartment, or certain kinds of co-ops like Mitchell-Lama or an HDFC. You may be able to have your rent, quote unquote, frozen at whatever the amount is when you begin receiving the benefit. So as soon as you turn 62, if you live in a rent stabilized apartment, you want to apply for SCREE. And let's say your rent is $1,000 a month. If you're approved for SCREE, your rent is going to stay $1,000 a month for as long as you qualify for SCREE. But that doesn't mean that the landlord isn't allowed to collect an increase. They do get an increase, but you don't pay it. The Department of Finance pays it in the form of a tax benefit.
So with the SCREE, I have an ongoing case I was in court today with, actually. My client receives, she has a SCREE benefit. These benefits go directly to the landlord, so my client never sees the money. The most important point that, the overarching is, make sure that you don't owe rent. Ask every so often of your landlord to provide you with a ledger that says you have a zero balance. Because the issue I have in this case is my client receives a SCREE benefit. It goes directly to the landlord. The landlord claims that there's rents owed, charges late fees for the rents that are not paid, and legal fees because now we're in court. They apply the SCREE benefit directly to fees and not to rent. And because, like Tiffany was saying, although your rent is frozen at $1,000, your landlord can still raise the rent. Department of Finance makes the difference. So if this difference is not being made, technically you owe rent. So the issue I'm fighting now is that my client does not owe rent. The landlord is misappropriating the funds they receive from the Department of Finance and attributing it to fees, which is not something that they should not be doing. So just, overarching point, pay attention to the rents being paid on that you pay or being paid on your behalf. Every so often, ask the landlord, can I please see a ledger? Can I please see how much money you're getting and how much money the rent should be? I want to make sure it's a zero balance, because you don't want to have something like SCREE where you have no involvement whatsoever until it's too late. And then you're like, what do you mean I owe $10,000? I have no, I paid my rent every month.
Yeah, and actually this goes really well into the next section that we are going to talk to you about, which is self-advocacy. So there are so many things that are going on when you're receiving any kind of public benefit. You got to recertify, you got to provide this documentation and that documentation. Your landlord might not be organized on their end. And a lot of our clients who we see in non-payment proceedings are actually coming to us, not because they've done anything wrong, but because there's some problem along the way that nobody caught. And you're not going to be able to necessarily catch everything, but there are some things that you can do if you're receiving any kind of benefit that we've been talking about tonight in order to reduce the likelihood of some kind of error or misappropriation or anything really. So we talked a little bit already about annual certifications. This is vitally important. This is one of the most important things that you can do to maintain whatever benefit it is that you're receiving. So just know that every benefit comes with some sort of requirement to annually provide the agency that's administering the benefit with up-to-date information about your household composition and your household income. And like Hiram said, the folks who administer these benefits, whether it's the landlord or the city or the state, they're very good at catching any discrepancies. So they run social security numbers, they verify all kinds of things. And if you had someone who left your household and you just forgot to let the management company know, and that person starts earning $100,000, it's going to affect you. So I'll turn it over to Hiram because I know that he has some anecdotes to add about the certification process.
Yeah, we'll start with NYCHA. You'll do the yearly research, the yearly like a check-in with them. So they can say how much is your household income. They'll give you like a projected income of what they believe should be like the range with which your income is. If you don't agree with that, let them know immediately, because the window with which they accept you telling them the rent is wrong, very small. And then if you pass a few months ago, why didn't you come to me 3 months ago? And then it's an issue on top of issue. If you have an affordable apartment, right? If you like something that's rent stabilized, that you get a 1 to 2 year lease renewal and you receive some benefit, please get the lease, because if your rent went up even $40, right? And you're only receiving $1,000 a month, and now your rent is $1,040, the landlord still wants that $40. And although you might not be the one who's ever paid the $1,000, they're gonna look to you for satisfaction. So stay on top of a lease. If you get a new lease, please immediately modify your benefit with that lease. Let HRA know, hey, I got a new lease, it's this much now, I need my benefit to go up. Or, I lost my job. Please, can you help me modify my benefit immediately? Don't wait on things. I have so many clients that they're only in housing court because they waited, and they waited to the point now that they're being sued, and they go, oh my God, what do I do? I was like, if you backtrack 6 months ago, if you would just let them know you lost your job, they might have had something that they could have offered you to help offset that money that you don't have anymore. If you pay rent by check or money order, please write the month and year that the check is for rent. Take a copy of it. Keep that on hand in case there's an issue down the road. If you pay by like a payment portal, screenshot the payment portal. If you could like edit the picture on your phone, write for rent here, and take a screenshot of that so you have it on file. Any conversation you have with your landlord or your super about a repair that needs to be made, follow up with an email if you can, or like take a note, maybe write a letter and mail it to yourself so that you have the date that this happened. In case you end up in housing court, you have all these documents, and your case becomes so much easier for us to win for you and to get you out of housing court. Essentially, I mean, you guys see my face. I hope you never see my face ever again, unless it's like one of these webinars. I don't want to meet you in person because that means you have an issue, and I don't want you to have issues. So, pay attention to what we're saying, because this is important things that you can just advocate for yourself and not have these issues. It'll never be something you even think about. So simply earmark checks, month, date, year of the check, pictures on the portal, if that's what you do, recertify, let HRA know if there's any change in your income, up or down, because if you don't do it the other way, the presumption is you're hiding something from them, and that might negatively affect you as well. NYCHA, projected income, sometimes is not what the reality is. Let them know right away. Also understand that they know more than they lead on in terms of income. They run social security numbers. I went with a client And like that mentioned before, that her grandson received Social Security. You know, we went to fight basically that it was an overcharge of $1,000, and they go, counsel, look, you're wrong, and egg on my face. I had no idea. My client had no idea. So anyway, good luck, everyone.
And so, you know, it sounds daunting. I know someone put in the chat that they feel helpless or hopeless, and that's so heartbreaking. And I'm so sorry that folks feel like that. I can see why people would feel that way hearing this, but actually, these things are meant to help you. And while it is difficult to navigate and does require some vigilance on your part, it can really make a huge difference if you qualify for these subsidies. To begin receiving them can be a total game changer in terms of your day-to-day life. So if anything that we've said tonight resonates with you and you're thinking, maybe I qualify for this, or I have this subsidy and I'm not quite sure, like, you know, what to do or why this one thing is happening, just know that there are resources available to you, right? Like our office is a resource, but your landlord is meant to be a resource. Like, so Hiram said, periodically checking in and getting an updated rent ledger and just making sure everything's on track if you have a subsidy can be very important. Going to HRA and getting your budget printout. So if you receive any subsidy, you want to make sure you're periodically stopping in. I know this can be time consuming and you probably don't have all the time in the world. There's an HRA office in the Queens Courthouse. There are you can go to the benefit access centers. There aren't as many as there used to be, but these are places where you can request a printout that shows all of your benefits and whether your landlord's receiving them, whether they're active or not. You can go to Catholic Charities or Homebase to verify your benefits. And, you know, so Section 8 and NYCHA, they're going to send you things periodically, and you can also check in with them in between your recertification process. And if you have Section 8, and HPD or DHCR is administering it, you want to be in touch with them. Of course, the Department of Finance, and I just want to say, if you're receiving SCREE or DREE, the Department of Finance, SCREE and DREE ombudsmen are very helpful. So if you're running into any issue with your SCREE and DREE benefit, those are the folks to reach out to, and they're very responsive. They're generally very kind and helpful, and they want to see your benefit working the way it's supposed to. So don't wait until housing court. If you're able, the moment you sense that something's amiss, reach out to someone. I know that it's hard, but try to reach out to someone to get some clarity on your benefit, what's actually being paid, and start to make inroads toward progress so that you don't end up in housing court. If you do end up in housing court, you may qualify for an attorney through Universal Access to Counsel. We're in Queens County Housing Court. That's how we connect with the majority of our clients. And you can ask the court to be connected with a free attorney who may be able to help you with some of these things. And with that,
Well, can I say one more thing?
yeah,
Just to
absolutely,
touch on-
Hiram.
Yeah. Going to the housing court and getting your like the printout of your benefits, called a benefit profile, is hugely important because it will show you line by line the check number, the date it was sent out, the date it should have been received, the date it should have been cashed. And if it's not cashed, there's a line that says discrepancy, and that's where the money was not like removed from the city's account into the landlord's account. So if there's discrepancies there, that's where you start to say, hey, my landlord not getting this money. Is it because they're not cashing the checks? Did they not receive the checks? And that would be hugely beneficial to you, because then if you could get on top of that, you would probably avoid having your landlords sue you for non-payment of rent. If you can figure those things out in yourself, benefit profile is huge. Once you have cash assistance and you receive FEPS or the shelter allowance, the Section 8 would be there. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany and Hiram. Thank you so much for amazing information. This is the portion now where you can ask your question. You can feel free to type your questions directly in the chat and I'll read them to our experts. Or you can raise your hand and then I will unmute you and you can ask your questions directly. The first question that we received in the chat is, where do you submit CityFEP's housing packages? From Felicia.
All right, so I think Hiram mentioned this briefly. So if you qualify for CityFEPs, you are either already in a shelter or at imminent risk of entering the shelter system. And you can, if you're in the shelter, there should be someone who's dedicated to working with shelter residents to find permanent housing. And that's the person who you should connect with to submit the application. If you're at imminent risk, I think that HRA has a contact that you can submit the applications to.
Thank you.
Okay, do you follow? Do you mean the initial packet, like to get CityFEPs or to renew your like voucher benefit? I don't have a lot of time, but
You know what? She is here.
because if it's to renew, it essentially is the same office that
Felicia, you can ask your
FEPS works
question
out of.
directly to Hiram.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hey,
My
Felicia.
question is for if someone is already in the shelter, but the shelter at one point was a sanctuary site, but now is a regular emergency shelter site, that typically we will either go through homes in order to submit the packets. I know that they're trying to transition to current, but if we didn't have access to homes nor current, how would we go about submitting those packages for clients that now have public assistance, have been granted a CityFEPS voucher, and now is either linked to an apartment and hoping for the package to be submitted?
Well, for me, if I'm unsure where to send it to, I just have like a list of maybe 30 people who work for HRA, and I just send it to them. And usually somebody will say, "Oh, this is not my office," and then somebody will say, "Oh, this is my office," and they'll kind of pass it along themselves. But you know, it's hard to get direction truly, and your situation seems like it's very difficult. But I don't know if I could lift it here, but we could provide a list of the HRA workers that answer emails and either have the answer for you or that could point you in the direction. But we could definitely share that with you.
Thank you. That would be helpful.
Yeah, of course.
Felicia, if you have a dedicated caseworker, that person may be the person to reach out to. And I would also suggest going to your nearest benefits access center.
Okay. I am actually the caseworker.
Oh,
Huh.
interesting.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to follow up because it sounded like it wasn't just a.
Felicia, if you will, I'm going to drop our info at bk.org email
Okay.
address. I monitor that email inbox. So send me an email there and we're gonna connect and be in touch to really get your questions answered, okay?
Thank you so much.
It is my
You're very
pleasure.
welcome.
Thank you for being here tonight. We have another question from Marmar. What type of benefits can the undocumented qualify for those with and without children with Social Security numbers?
So with children who have Social Security numbers, qualify for any of the things that we listed, really. But without, it becomes very difficult. There's not really much in terms of like the city. I can get you in touch with, there's some social workers that give information, but it becomes very difficult without the Social Security number, to be truly honest. But with, you could absolutely do cash assistance, the SNAP, you get the EBT card, you can pay for, essentials that you need. When you get the SNAP, you use that same EBT card, you pay for food, and all that would be through that child who has the Social Security number. And then shelter allowance, possibly get through that. FEPS as well, you can get the FEPS to stay, that all through your child. But without the social, all those benefits become very, very tight and difficult to receive.
I know you mentioned that you decrease the household size for each social security that's missing number
Yeah.
that someone doesn't have. That means more stretched resources for you. But please email us at info@bka.org. We can send you a list of immigrant nonprofits that serve our population that may be undocumented or immigrants here. There are resources, but please email us and we can send you a list. Alyssa wants to know, can they still get city FEPS or FEPS if they are not in a shelter?
Yeah, so you may be able to get city FEPS if you're not in a shelter, but you're at imminent risk of entering the shelter system. And there are some other ways that you can receive city FEPS. FEPS is only for families with children. So if you don't have children, you don't qualify for FEPS generally. Yeah. Go ahead,
I'll
Marvin.
say, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but if you are a senior, you might qualify for an APS referral, Adult Protective Services. That would require you to have some sort of disability, whether mental or physical. APS is becoming like recently very difficult to get without the mental disability. They're looking for that, not so much the physical, but by statute they should take both, and that would be the way to get another way to get the city FEPS through the APS. You get you FEPS to stay or FEPS to move.
Okay. And then are there any direct contacts for advocates that we can send or refer our patients and clients to for assistance? Marimar, I don't have any direct contacts. I would definitely recommend your clients or your patients to email us at info@bka.org. That mailbox is monitored regularly. And then we're able to filter out those questions and get it to the appropriate teams to get questions or referrals or possibly start the process for intake, but we're able to assess what the situation and needs are through our info box. And if they are, do not have access to a computer or prefer using the phone, please call us at 718-487-2300. And our team is more than happy to answer any questions and also provide referrals and get the process going. I'm going to unmute, looks like Ace. Yes, they have a question. Hi, Ace.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am telling you, I'm a strong advocate and I am leaping to the point that this type of webinar should have been completely shut down from everybody from Mama and Dim being on it. Okay. All right. So tell your colleagues what we mean by Mama and Dim. At any rate, okay, I have a few things. One of them, I just had one of my friends, they sent me the paperwork. I am basically a go-to person on stuff and very detailed. I just glanced over, they just got approved for the city helps. And I could be wrong, but I thought I caught something in the paperwork that this is only for 4 years. Let's answer that question first, and then I'll continue with same topic.
Yes, you're right. It's not forever. If you qualify for the benefit, you as of now are entitled to receive it for a limited period of time with, I think, a 1-year renewal. So you're absolutely right, Ace. Unfortunately, these are not all of these are forever benefits. So like city FEPS and FEPS are not forever benefits.
Okay, thank you, Miss Tiffany. Because one of the things that I said to them, again, that's why people send me stuff because I'm detailed. And I said to the individual, I said, please understand, this is short term. So if you're looking, and because again, they only gave her, that's another issue. She only had, if I'm not mistaken, less than 6 months to actually find a place. Otherwise, it kind of goes away. Do you want to talk about that? Yep. Take that deep breath, Miss Tiffany. Get you some water.
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't, I mean, there's a lot to say about it. There's almost too much to say about it. And that's always been the problem with these programs, right? Like the original program, I think, was Jiggets, right? And then there was Link, Work Advantage, and then there was Link, and all of those programs came with caveats, right? And they weren't long-term benefits. They were meant to help people get on their feet, to stabilize a very dire situation in the immediate short term. And the hope is that it would be enough, it would provide enough stability that, would enable people to leverage it into more long-term stable income. And we could talk a lot about why that's not really realistic, but unfortunately that's what the benefit is, and that's how it's funded.
And
Okay, no,
Ace, let me jump in there also. Our sponsor of the evening, Senator Comrie, he loves to hear this kind of feedback. We got to make sure you're interacting with the senator's office, especially if you're in his district or whatever district you're in. Our senators care for us. Make sure you're talking to them about this, and if we're hearing enough people talk about it, this is how we get things done. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, but I'll let you continue.
okay. So let me just say, I personally know State Senator Comrie extremely well. We go way, way, way back. Okay. The because I am filled with questions, and I always believe in being respectful of everyone's time, because there are some questions that are there. I'll just one more, because this is something that I just endured yesterday in helping someone, and then I'll put my hand back up again if there's time down the road. So the bullet points is as such. She's living in a building with 214 violations. Her apartment alone has 32 violations. It's going to be on for an adjournment. We are going to trial. The matter is as such is we can't get a hold of the Department of Codes and Violation. No matter how many times you call 311 and you get a service number, nothing seems to happen. Then we've called and left multiple messages. Nothing seems to happen. What is the best route? And speaking of HRA, yes. I met Miss Peterson. I'm telling you, I know everybody in the courthouse now. So what is the best route for us to go forward to get this department back into this home to say, hey, all they did was come and paint over mold and lead. You cannot paint over mold and lead. Thank you. Help us, please.
I'm so sorry to hear about that. It sounds like a truly terrible situation. We actually can't give legal advice about this specific situation without knowing additional details, but I'm happy to give you some more broad overview information. So with HPD, I think that's who you're talking about, right?
Correct.
They've written a lot of violations, and you want them to reinspect.
Correct.
Right. So you can contact 311 and ask to be connected to HPD in that way, but it's challenging, right? So sometimes HPD will show up at all different kinds of times. You never really know when they're absolutely going to show up. It can be tricky to arrange for the access. You can always start an HP proceeding and set up an HPD inspection through the HP proceeding. That's another way to have HPD go in, and you can contact HPD directly. There should be an HPD attorney in the HP part. So maybe you go to the HP part and try to speak with the HP attorney there. And those are just some ideas I have about just general legal advice about how to get HPD to reinspect that apartment.
Okay. Miss Tiffany, I want to say thank you. Also, while we were at the court, they had already left, but I will be starting an HP action. Oh yeah, I'm one of those fighters. Bring it on. Let's go forward. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Take my hand down. You guys keep going to other questions. I'm coming back. I'm filled with it
Very
tonight.
nice, Ace. And please, if we cannot get back to you, please email us at info@bk.org, and I'll get your email over to Tiffany and Hiram to continue the conversation.
Already took a screenshot. I'm ready. Keep going.
Good. Okay, now I'm going to get to the hand raises in a few moments. I do want to let everyone know we're going to get through a few more minutes of questions. But then once we get to that last question, I will have to stop for the interest of time and respecting everyone's time. And we'll ask that you email your questions to info@bka.org, and we will get back to you within the next 1 to 2 business days. I have a quick question from Phyllis Grant. Is how can she apply for senior housing?
Yeah, so it depends on what kind of senior housing, right? Like if you want to pursue Section 202 program housing, that's through HUD. So just the way you would apply for any Section 8. I know I'm not giving you a lot of detail here just in the interest of time, but you want to look into HUD and applying specifically through HUD for Section 202 program housing. NYCHA housing for seniors, apply directly through NYCHA. There are also a lot of senior housing, like lottery apartments in these like mixed buildings that, new development buildings have set aside certain units specifically for seniors, and there are also buildings specifically for seniors that you're going to look up the lottery system. So lottery apartments.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then we have Sybil who wants to know, can I take these programs out of the 5 boroughs? I'm happy to take that question. Sybil, most of our programs are available in all 5 boroughs. All of our consumer economic advocacy and our community economic advocacy programs are available citywide. So small business owners and our homeowner programs are available everywhere. Currently, we are only able to assist tenants in the boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens right now. So, but we never stop anyone from asking questions and getting the resources. We will provide you with answers, but as far as we can, and referrals as much as we can. But our actual programs for renters are in Brooklyn and Queens.
Yeah, just add one more thing if I could, Kendra, really quickly, is that so City FEPS is only available in the 5 boroughs. There is a statewide FEPS program, so you may be able, if you're living outside the boroughs, or you know someone living outside the boroughs, or you want to move outside the boroughs, you may be able to obtain statewide FEPS. Section 8 is statewide. The voucher sometimes a lot, depending on who's administering the voucher, you may be able to use that elsewhere in the state, or even sometimes people go out of state with those vouchers.
Thank you for clearing that up, Tiffany. I just reread the question, so thank you.
No problem.
Nyla, where are the locations for the New York City green markets? We are happy to send you a PDF of all the locations in New York City. We'll be doing that after this call here. So I am happy to do that. So I'm gonna answer one more question in chat and then allow Nicole Knight to ask her question. And then after which, if we did not get to your questions, we are going to ask you to email us at info@bk.org or give us a call from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday at 718-487-2300. I do apologize. And okay, Nicole, it looks like she lowered her hand. Nope, there we go. Nicole, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me?
I can. So sorry about that.
Okay. Just yeah, my keyboard is all messed up. I try to put it in the chat, everything. Just really quickly, I have clients who are currently in the shelter system and they desperately want to leave. They're very traumatized. They're experiencing some disgust, like dehumanizing things. But they're functional people who are like, current, who was currently, in housing, had their own place or whatever. And for whatever reason, this COVID thing, right? Cool. They want to know, right? If they can leave, like, because like public housing, Human Resources Administration pays for secondary tenants. So, like, if you have a room, they'll pay for it, up to a certain amount of money, right? They want to know if they was able to get one of those rooms, are they still entitled to a voucher? Because they don't want they want to be able to work because they're working, but you can't work in the shelters. Like the other people are not working, like they have mental illnesses, and the way it plays out is very disgusting. And I don't think you want to hear about it now, but eventually you will probably hear about it in the news. because that's where it's about to be a lawsuit. They're, getting together and talking amongst each other, but he wants out, So, yeah. Are they entitled to a voucher still if they're secondary tenant?
I don't know the answer to your question, and I'm so sorry to hear about what the folks you're working with are experiencing. I know that there are some really severe and deplorable conditions, and I'm so sorry. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Nicole, do me a favor. Email info@bk.org. We may not have the answer, but we can start poking around to find out the answer.
Absolutely.
So yeah, don't give up because we don't necessarily have it right in front of us right now. The team, Tiffany, Hiram, and the rest of the team is very dedicated to helping as many
For
people as
sure.
possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
No, it's my
I
pleasure.
appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And Aniki, I'm sorry, but we do not allow walk-ins in our offices. You would have to contact InfoBK, and we would have to set up an intake and set up an appointment to come to one of our offices. And I think, how do you get the recording, Kathy? I will be sending a the link to this recording around by Monday next week, along with the market locations and a couple additional resources we want you to have at your fingertips. So everyone who is on this call tonight will get all of this information. Okay, I think, unfortunately, I'm sorry I didn't get to all of the questions, but please email us at info@bk.org so you can get your questions answered. And I thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. Thank you, Tiffany and Hiram, for sharing your expertise and staying on a little later just to try to answer as many questions as possible. And with that, do you have any final words, Tiffany and Hiram?
I'll just say that it was a real privilege and honor to be able to present to you, and we're hoping to do more webinars like this to get information out into the community. It's so important. Like Hiram was saying, we're happy to meet you. We always love building relationships with everyone in the community, but we're hoping not to meet you in housing court because you have an eviction proceeding pending. These are really meant to empower you and give you some knowledge that you bring out into your community too, right? Because not everyone can attend a webinar at 6 o'clock in the evening. So everything you learned here, please share it with your community wide and far. And that's how we can build power and really, prevent displacement in Queens.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you all for taking the time to hear us and to absorb our information. We're gonna keep doing these. I don't know how often, but we definitely are. And more issues that I see, like the commonalities between the issues, I'll make sure that I'll recover them going forward so that we can learn from like mistakes that are made and venture to not make them again as a community. But thank you all.
Thank you all. And a special thank you to Senator Comrie for spreading the word and letting you all know that we were here this evening. And we look forward to bringing you more information on webinars. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening and best of luck.